Hi, and welcome to another video from myself, Bourbon Hunter UK. Now in this video I'm going to be giving you a brief description, a drink through, so to speak, of Buffalo Trace's Kosher Rye recipe. Now this comes in at 94 proof, it's age stated on the back at 7 years old, and this bottle set me back £35. Now I know that you can pick it up from time to time at that low price, but you can normally get it for about £39.99, £40 here in the UK. So I needed to pit it against other bourbons or other whiskies, as in this case, around that same proof point or around that same price, around the same age, you know, or as near as I could do it. So I've got, I've got Elijah Craig here. This is a small batch. This is 94 proof. Now, the mash bill, I'm sure, I think it's only about 10% rye, I think. Age statement, it's suspected to be between 8 to 12 years. Now I think, because it's a batch, a blended bourbon, I think it's majority, a high percentage of it is going to be that 8-year-old, excuse me again, and a small percentage of it will be up to 12 years. But again, it's a batch blend. They go for a certain profile with that blend, and they add in more or less of other aged bourbons to get it to that profile that they want. So it could be all 8, it could be 8 with a dash of 12, it could be 8 with a dash of 11, you know, and a bit more of a 12, or, you know, it could be a load of variation. But basically, it's a batch profile product. This comes in, I bought this for £32.50 from Tesco's. You can often get it for that low price, £32 to £33. Goes on special offer from time to time at the UK supermarkets. Excuse me. Its standard price is about £40 to £42. Worth getting if you can get it when it's on special offer. You know, save yourself 8 to 10 quid easily. Now, the other one is another Buffalo Trace product. This is Sazerac Rye. Now, I know you'll be saying to yourself, well, why pit a bourbon and a rye? Because this is, if you've ever drunk this, or drank this, you'll know that this is a barely legal rye. It's, you know, it has to be over 50% rye in the mash bill to be classed legally in America as a rye. This could be 50.1%, could be 51%, could be 52%. We do not know the mash bill. Buffalo Trace, very secretive about their mash bills. Believed to be about 6 years old. At the moment you can buy this for £27 from Tesco's. It's on special offer until the middle of August next month. That's 2025. I bought this bottle at Christmas when it was £27 again. Worth picking up. It's a very bourbon-esque rye. There is a rye element to it, obviously, but overall it drinks more like a bourbon. If you've ever thought about maybe trying a rye and you like bourbon, this would be a good start, because it does have a lot of that bourbon profile. It's an easy into rye. If you like this and you like that slight difference that it has to a standard bourbon, you may well enjoy a rye, or you may not. I quite like it. As I say, I like bourbon in general, not overly keen on ryes, but I bought this with the expectation that it, you know, be nice to add to the collection. Probably wouldn't drink it a lot. This is a great pour. Every now and again I pour myself this, and I genuinely say to myself, I should drink this more. It is different to a bourbon and different enough to warrant having it occasionally. Very nice. So, like I said, they're all 35, 32, 27. That's when they're on special offer. When they're not on special offer, you're looking at £40, 40-ish, you know, low 40s. And this one I've seen this for 35, 37. In some places, unbelievably, I've seen it in the £40 mark. Now, I did think originally about putting in Eagle Rare as another option in this, but it would only be 90 proof. And if I'm being totally honest with you, I've got one bottle of Eagle Rare at the moment, which is unusual for me because I normally have a backup, but the bottle that I have got is very off profile. And I didn't want that to factor in because I've drunk quite a few bottles of Eagle Rare over the years, and this one is an exceptionally different and exceptionally off profile flavour. And I don't think that would be a fair comparison. And if I was just to, drink it and pretend it was, what it normally tastes like, that's not a true representation of it. And I think, to be truthful with you, Elijah Craig, being at the same proof point, and to a certain degree at the same price range as well, is a better comparison. So, like I did on my last video, I'm going to nose them quickly first. They've been sat for at least 10 minutes, giving them a chance to open up. I'll nose them first, then I'll try them. I'll try to be as descriptive as I possibly can. And then I'll sum it up at the very end, try to give you the best, my thoughts. And remember, this is just my own personal thoughts on the subject. We all have a different palate. You may try these. In fact, that's a very good point. One of the things that I do as a bourbon drinker is I often watch YouTubers and they will say, drink Elijah Craig. If they come away with it saying, no, I don't like it, it's not really for me, and that I know straight away that person's profile is not my profile. Whereas other YouTubers that do actually enjoy Elijah Craig and they big it up, so to speak. I don't say it's the best thing out there, but it's worth having on the shelf. I listen to those guys because Elijah Craig is a lovely boy. If you've not had it, I would recommend it. So without further ado, and enough waffling, let's get on. Now, out of the three, the Sazerac is the lightest in colour. I don't know whether you can make it out, but this is more a straw yellow colour. This is more amber. And this one is a touch darker. The rye recipe is a touch darker than the Elijah Craig, which, for an 8 to 12, you'd expect this one to be the darker out of the three. So, on the nose, let's try with the Sazerac. Wow, caramel. Heaps of caramel. Caramel for days. A hint of lemon. I wouldn't say lemon pledge. I've heard people say lemon pledge, and I have had lemon pledge notes in certain high rye bourbons, but I wouldn't say that. It's more just a hint of lemon, almost a zest. But butterscotch caramel, slightly sweet. But in the background, you can smell the rye, whether that's that lemon. But there's no, I wouldn't say there's any oak, char. There's a touch of smokiness to it now I've said that. But let's move on to Elijah Craig. Sweetness. Woodiness. Now, when I first poured this, I gave him a quick sniff through before I even started the video, and this came off as sweeter than the other two. But it seems to have, now it's opened up a bit, it seems to have lost that sweetness. Lost that vanilla edge that it had. I'll tell you what, I'm going to come back to that. Just going to leave it for a minute. That seemed a bit muted. Oh. Dry fruit. Rich dried fruit. Not overly rich, not sickly sweet. Caramel and butterscotch dancing around in the background, hiding, but there. Yeah, there's a rye note in the background as well, very similar to the rye note in the background of the Baby Saz. Right, let me go back to the Elijah Craig for a second. Oh, seem to have a rye nose today because I can pick up rye in this. There was a slight hint of sweetness, that vanilla-ness. But I could definitely, I must just have a nose for rye today. It's funny how your palate can change on a daily basis, on a moment-to-moment basis, depending on what you've eaten a day. I mean, I haven't eaten for a good couple of hours now. But subdued, muted sweetness there. There is hints of vanilla and butterscotch in the background. But enough of that, let's just try them. Right, first the Sazerac. The nose on the Baby Saz overpowers the Elijah Craig. But let's try. To your health. Sweetness on the tongue. Gentle, warming spice coming through. Butterscotch comes through as well. A hint of corn. Maybe just more than a hint of corn. The finish is good. You get the oak, a charred oak, but a mild charred oak on the finish. Overall sweetness on the palate, which is another reason why the Sazerac rye is such a surprise to me. It does come across very bourbon-esque, like I said earlier. I can smell rye, it seems to be popping now. I'm going to try another. I mean, first drink of the day, lovely and warming. Like I say, the lightest of all in colour. It's a mix of rye, butterscotch and caramel. More butterscotch I'd say than caramel now. A very nice nose on it. Something that I like. It suits my palate. And that lemon keeps popping in every now and again. I do say this to myself every time, you know, I should drink more of this, especially when you can pick it up for £27 at 90 proof. It's a great pour. Spice built slightly from the mild first taste, but well balanced. and the oak is coming through more on the finish now. A hint of corn now. That corn has died off a bit. A lovely flavour on the finish. Can't taste the lemon. It's not overly dry, like a like a lemon rind, which is what I was expecting when you get the lemon. Actually, now I'm starting to get the oak on the nose, and that lemon keeps popping through it. It just, every time you forget about it, it just puts in an appearance just to remind you that it's there. And you look for it and it's gone, and then just as soon as you forget about it, pops in. Right, let's have a drink of water. Let's try the Elijah Craig. Oh, that creamy vanilla. It's back again. Yeah. Not heaps of it, not like when it was freshly poured, but it's there. Right, yeah. Let's send it. You get a mellow sweetness as it hits the palate, and it just rolls into a slightly sweet oak. And as it goes over the palate, the spice is a lot less than the Baby Saz. But as it runs through the mid palate and goes to the finish, that wood, it's a lovely, lovely flavour. Not any drier than the Baby Saz. Let me have another sip. Spice kicks in now on the second sip. Almost a roasted corn, like almost like a burnt popcorn, almost. But it soon develops into this. Excuse me. It soon develops into a smoky, mellow wood. It seems to hint on it, and in the finish now, it seems to be more prominent. Tell you what, I'm going to try just one more little sip just to see if that finish will pop even more. All it does is just repeat, rinse and repeat, as they say. Initially you get a mellow sweetness as it bursts onto the palate, which, as I said, develops in through the spice into this mellow, warm wood. Hints of smokiness and a slight, like, almost burnt popcorn, almost. It never quite gets to that point where it becomes dominant. It always does, as if it's building to it and then it just dissipates, which is nice, because I think if it tasted of burnt popcorn, it would be a one-note wonder, but it's there in the background. An easy sipping bourbon. Hey, I could easily, and I have done, easily sip that for a length of time. Not much depth to it, but for the money, when you're paying £32, you know, you cannot complain about it. I do think, if I'm being totally honest, sweetness is popping in that now. The Sazerac, I think, to be true for you, beats the Elijah Craig in this case, for my own personal flavour profile, like I've said before. So, let's get on to the main reason for doing this video. The rye recipe. The Buffalo Trace Kosher Rye recipe. Oh, caramel. That dry fruit is there in the background now, but the caramel has got like a creamy sweetness to it now as well. But let's give it a go. Oh my Lord. The sweetest on the palate by far out of the three. As soon as it hits the palate, that sweetness, that wood comes through as well. Not so mellow as the Elijah Craig, but in a good way. There's a char to it, which personally I quite like. A char barrel note, maybe even toasted barrel note, but a char barrel note I quite like myself, as long as it's not overly done or overly bitter. I'm going to try again. There is such an unusual flavour on the palate. It's hard with this one, because when you first sip it, you get this unusual flavour on the palate, and as it goes over the mid palate and the spices erupt out, which are very nice actually, not sharp or antagonising in any way. But then when the finish hits, it blows you away and it overpowers the palate. You know, you was concentrating on the palate and trying to work out what those flavours are, and then as soon as it gets to the finish, bang, the finish takes your attention, draws your attention away from what was on the palate. You forget about hunting for that flavour. What was that flavour? What are those flavours? Because the finish on this is just boom, it's just there. A touch drier than I would say the others. But I don't like dry things normally. But the good thing about having a dryish finish is that you're more, for me, I'm more inclined to throw another one in to remove that dryness. And this has it, because as soon as you, I'm going to do it again. It's like a honeyed grain, actually. If I'm being, excuse me, if I'm being truthful, if I can narrow it down, I'd say it was like a honeyed grain as it goes in. That slight sweetness, honeyed grain note, but not grainy as in a youthful grain. Grain as in grain, the actual grain itself, like a honeyed. I've heard of honey malted grains before. I wouldn't know what they taste like. I can only imagine what they would taste like. But yeah, that rye comes through. But the caramel and butterscotch on this is for days. Now that dried fruit, excuse me, now that dried fruit, it seems to have taken a back seat, allowing the caramel, butterscotch, and they are distinctly different. I mean, people can sometimes say, well, caramel is butterscotch, but this, you get that caramel creaminess, and then you get that sharp butterscotch, that hard, sharp butterscotch flavour as well. Note, maybe it's a better word than flavour when you're dealing with your aromas. And in the background, you've got that dried fruit. I'm going to send it again. There is so much going on in this that it's worth sitting down with. If you want something to just, it sounds awful, but just to throw down your neck, you don't want to give it much thought. I mean, either of these two are good enough. This one, the Baby Saz, has a sweeter profile, which I like. Which for a rye, I find hard to believe in myself. You know, if somebody had said this, asked me this question before, you know, will I choose a rye over Elijah Craig? You know, I'd be like, no. But I do actually, there's a sweetness to this one, which, yeah, excuse me. I mean, I'm a big Buffalo Trace fan. Not to the exception of all others. I mean, I love Jack Daniels, and I'm not talking about Old Number 7 or anything like that. You know, I love their single barrels. I've got a 90 proof, I've got 100 proof, and I've got the cast strength, you know, full proof. I do love those. I do like Wild Turkey as well. But there is something about the Buffalo Trace, where I mean, waffling off onto another subject again, but there is something about the Buffalo Trace overall profile, that sweet, bourbon-esque profile that I really like. And for being that I'm one of these people that don't like an overly dry finish, even when I do get a dry finish, which I do get with this, not overly, not too much, but it's well balanced because you've got the sweetness at the front. And like I said previously, you know, when you get a dryish finish, you're just keen, I'm keen to just grab it again and have another pour, another mouthful. So it's enticing in that way, because I get the hit of sweetness, and then I get the burst of spice, and then I get the dryness. But in between that, this is a bit of a myriad run of different flavours and things that you could sit and explore. I'm not saying, you know, it's not an E.H. Taylor small batch. It's far from that. Well, not too far. I think that would be doing it a disservice if I said that it was so far removed from it. It isn't that far. It's not that far at all. You know, it isn't in the same league as an E.H. Taylor small batch. But, like, it's getting that direction. In fact, sitting there thinking about it now, I wish I had put that off-profile Eagle Rare in, because I think it would have given it a run for its money. And that Eagle Rare, off-profile Eagle Rare bottle that I've got at the moment is phenomenal. I've never enjoyed a bottle of Eagle Rare as much as I've enjoyed that. And that is very off-profile. It hasn't got the sweet Buffalo Trace characteristics that you often find. You know, it's like I said, it's off profile, but I'm really enjoying that. But let's sum it up. Any one of these three, would I buy them again? Yes, without a shadow of a doubt. Elijah Craig, always been very keen on, always. The Baby Saz, a shock to me, always has been. But this, the rye recipe, a great pour. Out of the three, if I was out and somebody said to me, you could have a pour of all three, which one would you want? If it was that moment where I could sit with it and enjoy it, you know, whether that's chatting with friends and just sipping away and picking it. Barrel notes coming through now on the nose. Seriously. See, getting a bit more butterscotch on this now. Not caramel, but butterscotch. Vanilla. Yeah, that rye's shining through now. But there's still the caramel, creaminess, hint of vanilla, you know. But this is the wonderful thing about bourbons. This is one of the reasons why I love drinking bourbon. It's something you can sit down with, enjoy, and it never fails to explode on my senses. This rye recipe, I mean, I love the wheat recipe. I've had 2 bottles of this, whereas I've only had 1 bottle of the wheat, but the reason for that is I can't seem to find it below £50 anywhere for the wheat. If I could find it at £35 again, I'd snap it up. I really would. The rye recipe is definitely worth buying. If you like Buffalo Trace, or maybe even if you don't, because that, you know, it has that sweet initial profile, but it does develop into a drier finish. I think this is a great bourbon, and one that's worth buying. It really is. It's far better than the Elijah Craig. It stands head and shoulders above the Elijah Craig. Compared to the Baby Saz, easily, I'd say it was, you know, it's worth its money. At £35, £40 is its normal sort of regular price. At £40 compared to, you know, when this is at its normal price, it's 35. That £5 difference, I think, is worth it. I mean, this is a great pour at 27. This is a great pour at 32, and this is definitely 100% a great pour at 35. You know, I recommend the Buffalo Trace Rye recipe, the kosher. So I could wax lyrically about this for the next 10 minutes, but if you stay with me thus far, thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed my video. Please remember to like, subscribe and share if you can. I mean, I'm only a small channel. I'm just trying to get to push the boundaries and to open myself up to you guys. And in my next video, I'm going to do something a little bit different to what I've done before. Over the years of drinking bourbon, I've learned quite a few things to do with glassware and flavour wheels, neck pours and everything else. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a quick video. There's never a quick video with me, I'm sorry. I'm going to try to do a quick video where I try to give as much information as I possibly can that I've learned and pass it over to you. I mean, even down to nosing. You've probably seen I sniff the back of my hand. I'll explain why I do that. I'll explain about the glasses that I use, Glen cans and coppeters and stuff like that. I'll explain about opening bottles, how long they last for. I'll even do a little bit about infinity bottles, which is a completely off-topic thing. But like I said, I hope you enjoyed this video. And until next time, please take care, and I'll see you soon.